Hi everyone. Today we will cover one of the important scenario-based questions from data pipeline, that is copy files dynamically using pipelines. Let's understand the scenario description. We need to copy files from one directory to another directory based on configuration file. So configuration file contains three important information. One, file name, and next one source directory, and what is the target directory. So using Fabric data pipelines, we have to dynamically get the file name from the config and get the source directory and target directory. We have to move all these files simultaneously from source to target. So let's understand how we can do this using data pipelines. Now I have opened the OneLake files view. So in this view, we can see under files, we have config directory. Inside config, we have the config file. So we can see file name, source folder, and target folder. So let me open source folder. If I go to source, you can see three files, file 1, file 2, file 3. But in my config, I have file 1 and file 3. Okay, and let's go back to the config. And I have to move this from source folder to target folder. So this is source and this is target. Yeah. Now let's understand how we can complete this particular scenario using data pipelines. Now, first thing is we have to read config file, and other thing is we have to copy file from source to target. And this thing we have to repeat for all files. Now, in order to read a config file, the available activity inside pipelines is lookup activity. Using lookup activity, we can read a specific file and its contents. And next thing, in order to copy the file, we have to use copy data activity. Since we have to repeat this for all files, we have to use for each and use the output from the lookup activity to copy all the files dynamically. Now let's understand this pipeline design by going into the pipeline. Let's create new pipeline for this. Let's search for pipeline. Data pipeline scenario 1. Let's start with the lookup activity. So we'll name this as lookup config file. And the important thing is settings, and we need to go to settings and we have to browse all. From browse, we need to select the OneLake catalog from this side. Okay. Here we need to go and select a workspace. That's LSEC scores workspace 2. So inside that we need to select whatever lakehouse that we want, and have selected it. And now we are more interested in files, not tables. So we'll go to the files view, and inside files, we know where the config file resides. So whether we can use browse and select the config file. Yeah, we can also directly provide the path, as we already know, config and config.txt. And we can do this recursively, and file format is delimited text, and we need to change the column delimiter as the delimiter is pipe. So we want all the contents, not only the first row. Yeah, so with this we are done with config file. So in order to debug this, we can run once and check this the output data, how the data is looking like. It is completed. Let's see the output. So if you look at the output, we have the count is 2, and value we have file name, two file names, and the respective details like source folder and target folder. So it's working fine. Now let's take the for each activity, because we need to iterate through all these file names. Let's go to the activities, and from activities let's pull for each. Now one success of lookup activity, we need to trigger the for each activity. The for each activity requires items as an input. The input value is nothing but lookup config file. So value is what we require. Value is the array. So inside for each, we wanted to copy the data. So we will take the copy activity and we will name it as copy file. Okay. And inside source, we need to select the same lakehouse files and file path. Here we need to take dynamic content. So each item has like the file name, source directory and all. We need source directory, source folder. Source folder is a name present within configuration file. And we need file name, which is present in again configuration file. So we need to select binary because we wanted to copy file as is. We don't want to read all contents in it. And after copying, we want to delete the files. We don't want to retain that in source. That's it with the source. Now let's go to the target. So inside target also we can select this lakehouse and files. And within files, we can select again the for each and the target folder and the file name. We wanted to keep binary as is. Copy behavior, we wanted to keep preserve the hierarchy. We don't want to flatten the hierarchy. So for example, if you are copying any substructure file, that times if you use the flatten hierarchy, all those files will be copied to the one directory instead of maintaining that hierarchy. So we will go with the preserve hierarchy option. Yeah, no need to change any of the settings, so we can run this. Yeah, we can check the run is completed. So if you take the lookup activity, we have two records in the lookup file and the same like for each run for two iterations. In each iteration, it took one file. So in first iteration, it took sample file 3 and copied it to target. And the second iteration, it took some sample 1 and it copied simultaneously. So in for each loop, we can observe one behavior. So in settings, you can say sequential. If you do not take this one, all the records will run in parallel. All for each loop instances will run in parallel. If you take this one by one will run. So next there is important property that is a batch count. The relevance of this batch count is you can specify how many iterations of for each should run at a time. So by default there is no limit, but you can set that limit to up to 50. You can run 50 concurrent activities using for each. So this is one. And there is a little bit of change that we can do to this scenario. So now we have asked to dynamically copy using configuration. There is another approach is I don't want to use configuration, but there is a one source directory I specify. I want to move all files from that directory to the next. We don't know how many files will be present. So in that scenario, we have to use get metadata activity and get all the files present in the source directory, and we can use the same for each activity. And we can change the like bit of the settings in copy data activity, and we can complete that particular exercise. You can try it on your own. So please let me know if you want me to make any one or any scenario based questions into videos.